Welcome to No Romance Without Finance. Today we're going to do something different. In anything that I do, I like to take a holistic approach, and finance is no different. So, we always talk about the different things you can do to be financially successful, the bank account, all of those things. But I want to take a more holistic approach and talk about Feng Shui. And today we have Nixie Marie, who is a Feng Shui practitioner and expert. She is the CEO of Clarity, an all-natural cleaning product brand. And she has an intimate passion for transforming spaces into havens of success, well-being, and sustainability. Nixie has graced the pages of prestigious publications like Well and Good, leaving readers captivated by her profound insight. Nixie also landed features in the Alexandra POV, an online luxury magazine, Voyage LA, and has been featured in some of the top podcasts such as The Positive Head, Earth Speak, and Hippie Witch. In addition, Nixie also hosts her own top-rated podcast called High Vibe Home, where she teaches the ancient art of Feng Shui to explore the intersection of design, spirituality, and well-being. Welcome, Nixie, to the show. Hi, Nixie. How are you?
Hi, Patty. I'm amazing. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm so happy to have you on the show. I am really lucky because I ran into you at the Create and Cultivate event that we were both attending. What a cool event it was. And this is why I like going to those events, because you meet so many amazing people, you being one of them, and you never know where your paths are going to cross, right? Like, I would have never ever guessed that I would meet a feng shui expert, and how interesting it would be to have this person on the show, right? I mean, you just meet so many different people at
Yeah.
these events.
Yeah, Create and Cultivate has been such a great event. I've gone to a couple and always meet amazing women. And I read the book Work Party and by Jacqueline, who or I think was the original founder of Create and Cultivate events. So there's always a powerhouse of women, and I love the vibe that it brings. So I'm so happy that we cross paths.
As am I. So, Nixie, let's start. This is what I'm really curious about. How did you start with feng shui? How did that even happen?
Oh, that's such a great question. I kind of like to say that Feng Shui really found me, and it was a process of finding myself, always kind of leaning towards, after having been in the fashion industry and a very not so healthy, organic, loving environment for me. I
Right.
went through a sort
Yeah.
of change within myself and wanted to be
Hmm.
surrounded by a different industry. So I sort of followed my own breadcrumbs and started doing, little services here and there. I lived in LA at the time, kind of currently transitioning out of LA. So I really needed to find something that I could support myself with, not
Right.
being in the industry, not wanting to climb a ladder, kind of always been an entrepreneur, wanting to find something on my own. And after several things that didn't quite go as planned,
Hmm.
I started cleaning homes actually. And that actually turned out to be a very lucrative endeavor. And I found that I could make between $500, $1,000 in a day. And I was like, wait a minute, this is
Wow.
pretty good. So I eventually started scaling, training my employees, and it was one of my most successful businesses, I would say, to this day. And then the pandemic came and swiped that right away. And I could have really fought hard and really, tried to save or keep the business, but we were a green cleaning business. So the pandemic sort of didn't really give a good example of how we wanted to stay green. I would have to switch ideas. So, anyways, long
Right.
story short, I was developing a system within my cleaning business on how to not only clean the physical, but also clean the energetic. So I would
Hmm.
train my employees on how to cleanse a space and also physically clean it. And we were well known for creating good energy and good vibes, not just the physical day to day of surface cleaning. So when I started learning a little bit more about what I was doing, lo and behold, there was a system called Feng Shui that really was sort of this intuitive thing I already was applying to the business. So I went to get certified and studied and found my teacher. And that sort of got me into the Feng Shui world. And I launched a online business portion of that because we did test. I kind of had a little bit of skepticism initially.
Hmm.
And so I really needed to sort of work with my clients that I had in my cleaning business to test it and really understand the system. How does it work? How do I apply something in a home that's actually going to create a difference or shift the energy? So I did a lot of trial and error until I really started putting myself out there online to create virtual readings and reports, and kind of the rest is history. So
That's a great story. So I want to go back as far as your cleaning business because I know there are a lot of people out there that are starting their own businesses. So what made you so successful in this cleaning business, and how were you selling? Were also cleaning your space energetically, because that's not something tangible that people can see, right? People can see if you're cleaning their home and if it's clean or not. But how did you sell the energetic part of it?
Great question. So, the first thing of that question is I think because I'm in LA, that was a great area to really
Mm-hmm.
test these types of systems because a lot of wellness, it's very wellness focused. I'm in
Right.
Topanga in the Malibu mountains. So my clientele base was very high end. So
Hmm.
it was easier for me to really promote and pitch something different, especially because we used all natural products
Right.
and we weren't using toxic chemicals. So that is a huge thing, obviously, in the more wellness, like moms and families and
Hmm.
those with pets. So I really sold it more so on the green aspect of it. And then
Right.
we tested like saging and putting incense while we'd clean and playing mantras and high vibrational music. So those were sort of the physical examples of how we would come into the space, and it would be all about creating intention when we clean. So it was when we're cleaning a bathroom, what's the intention behind a bathroom? What's the intention behind cleaning a kitchen? And everything really sort of stemmed from there. Some of it we do and our clients wouldn't really understand. They're like, I just don't get it. Why does it feel so good when I walk back in my home? And I
Right.
do believe it had a lot to do with the products we're using as well.
And what would be like an intention as to why you would clean a bathroom other than it just being clean?
So in Feng Shui, actually, bathrooms are they have a lot of water elements, obviously, with the
Okay.
sinks, the toilets, the showers. So water is connected to two things in Feng Shui: communication and, well, emotions and really finances. So in a bathroom, a lot of times what happens is there's an excess amount of water. So we want to balance those elements. And when cleaning, we would set intentions for financial prosperity or for
Mm,
abundance or just sort of
interesting.
create a mantra. I had a system where in every gua, which I'll explain shortly here, I'm sure, in the
Hmm.
Bagua system, any area that we'd clean, whether that be the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, there would be a mantra that would kind of go with it. So, my employees sort of knew this. Whether they did it all the time, I don't know. But I do know that they actually learned a lot themselves on how to keep their space clean. So it was really, I thought my favorite part about that business was like the female empowerment side of it, where I got to have employees, and some of these employees that would come into my space, were going through big life transitions, and to be able
Hmm.
to be like an example and to really empower them to be their own financial um, provider, because I did pay well for cleaning, and a lot of companies do
Great.
not. So it's just like there was a lot of things to it. That's
Yeah,
really the bulk of it. Yeah.
and let's focus on the good energy that you were putting out by doing that, right? Because
Hmm.
energy is all around us. I'm a very
Yeah.
big energy person, and I'm very very sensitive to energies. And you can really sense someone's energy the second they walk into the room before they even
Hmm.
open their mouths, right? And I'm very sensitive to it. So I know that any time that I've done something with really good intentions and help where it's helped people, that always has come back around. So I think, just what you were doing, coupled with the fact that you were helping these women and empowering them, was really, really great. And my next question is, how are you testing your methods? How did that work?
Yeah, so we initially started just by like saging a space and seeing how that would. Not everybody loves sage. Not everybody loves
Hmm.
certain scents. It can be really like toxic to them and themselves. So I would actually ask permission at first when we first started all this, like, hey, would you be interested in sort of a space clearing? We're trying something new. And I'd only pitch it to like my top clients that I knew
Mm-hmm.
would sort of be into it. Maybe not
Right.
some of those that were, I have no idea
Yeah.
what sage even is. And they're like, what are you
Yes.
doing in my house? But I also started intuitively picking up on energies in a space when I'd go to meet the clients. So initially, once I got to the place where I had my employees and I was just meeting and greeting my clients and I wasn't really doing the physical labor anymore, I could kind of sense already there was maybe something going on in a space. So, for example,
Mm.
divorce, arguments, issues with children, going into a home is a very sacred experience for people. It's
Exactly.
not something that everybody feels comfortable with, in
Right.
fact, and a lot of people need a lot of help in their space.
Sure.
It was really alarming to walk into certain environments and see, okay, there's hoarding situations, there's a lot of clutter,
Mm-hmm.
there's kids that are having tantrums, and their parents are going crazy, not knowing why. So what I would actually do is that's when I would use that as sort of a guide to ask them, hey, we're trying something new. We're cleansing spaces, not only physically. So after we would clean the space physically,
Mm-hmm.
then my team would go in and clear the space energetically, whether that be with sound, with scent, or with mantras.
Cool. Very cool. So why don't you tell people who really don't know what is Feng Shui? I mean, we know what it is, kind of, but really, what is it as an expert?
So Feng Shui is, in my personal words, is
Mm-hmm.
really an opportunity for us to connect to the environment, the nature, and bring nature into our home. It's a way for us to harmonize a space, live in balance, live in harmony, live in a safe, sacred environment. Because what we often see more than anything is we live in square boxes. We're not connected to nature like we
Mm-hmm.
used to be. We have a very big disconnection for our innate ability to understand this balance, that we're cyclical, that we have moments where we need to be more inward and we need to pause and slow down, and then we have moments where we need to be busy and we need to continue to push forward and move through projects. And that is something that nature already has. It's already, there's cycles in nature, there's seasons in nature. And so when we live separate from that, we are kind of in a constant go mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're constantly hustling, constantly doing, and we're forgetting to be. So I see this space, our homes, as an opportunity to create that space to be, to whether that be empowered, whether that be to wanting to create more wellness, to create more meditation, to
Mm-hmm.
create sanctuary, or to simply just have a family that we can feel nourished and our family isn't, having disagreements or arguments. And that's really just like scratching the surface because Feng Shui is a rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very
Sure.
complex sort of system, and there's definitely a lot of misconceptions and thoughts around it's just moving furniture. And while that is a very important part of it, it's more about the energy. And so we utilize words like chi, which is the energy, the life force, the pranic space that permeates around us. It's the inhale that we take and the exhale. That's life force, that's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everywhere in our home. So we evaluate that in when we're doing feng shui and a consultation, or even you can do this in your home today by just walking around the space and sensing, like, what are your thoughts saying? How do you feel in your body? What's coming up for you when you walk into
Mm-hmm.
each room of your space? Do you immediately start to feel unworthy? Do you immediately start to feel like, oh my gosh, my space is full of clutter. I can't believe I let it get this. Like, do you notice your thoughts start to go in a downward spiral? Or do you
Right.
walk in and you feel uplifted, empowered, and like, yes, this is my office. This is how I'm going to get, things done today. I'm feeling motivated. So we create our environment around
Mm-hmm.
us, right? By our thoughts, by our words, by our actions. That's how we create our home. And it sort of is a dance because our environment will start to take over because of the thoughts that we constantly put out into this vibrational energy that we can't see. So Feng
Right.
Shui measures that. It uses a system, whether it's this Bagua map system, whether it's measuring chi with dowsing rods or pendulums, or even the physical body. And
Mm.
it's also just an opportunity to really tune into the elements: earth, fire, metal, water, and wood. And we balance out the space with those elements.
That's so
That's a
interesting. And
nutshell.
yeah, and well, Nixie, I always
Yeah,
say that show me your
anybody here.
space, whether it's your home or your office or your desk, and I can tell you what's going on in your brain. Because
100%.
when you see and someone's home or their desk and it's messy and it's cluttered, that's exactly the way that person is, and that is really my experience with them is that
Yeah.
I truly, and this is the truth, I don't do business with anybody who has a messy office. That is my
Mm,
rule,
yeah.
because
Yeah, that's a
that tells you that that person is probably a shit show. That that person is not going to be organized, right? And I'm a very organized person. I'm not a, go with the flow type of person. I'm very organized. I'm very
yeah,
disciplined. I need
you
things
are.
done at a certain time, certain way. And I can't function around people that aren't that way. So
Mm,
when I go into someone's office and it's messy, I automatically know that this is not a person that I can work with. Or when I go into someone's home and it's that way, I can't function around that. And that's part of
mm,
Feng Shui, right? As far as what that
yeah.
energy is giving.
That's such a great example and really, really important when you are thinking of partnering with someone,
Hmm.
because I mean, yes, there's a lot to be said for having someone maybe that's your opposite, right? But when it comes
Right.
to your business and things that are going
Hmm.
to move the needle forward and
Right.
create wealth and create success, you do want to have a match. And,
Hmm.
it's something that we we don't really think about. We don't have that level of awareness, most people, to think, okay, what does their environment look like? Is their environment actually going to match mine? Are we going to
Right.
be an energetic match to create
Correct.
success, especially in business? So I love that.
Yeah.
It's a great, great tool to put in the space for sure.
And do you think that so when I was dating, I would go into someone's home and I would do the same thing. If
Oh,
someone's
yeah.
home was messy, I would know immediately, you know what? This is not the person for me. So how can we use that as a guide as to whether this person is right for me? How does someone's home tell you about them?
Mm. So with dating, that's really a great starting point.
Hmm.
The first thing I would ask yourself is, how do you feel when you first walk into the space?
Hmm.
Do you feel that, because this could be you deciding whether your energies are going to create a space together. It's the same thing about evaluating for business. Do you
Yes.
feel like you're excited to be in there? Do you
Right.
feel, and I'm not getting, the details of like, does he fold his socks the right way? Or
Sure.
she
Sure.
does, are the drawers really organized? That's something you can look at from a deeper level for sure,
Right.
because it's an intimate thing. You don't just go into your future potential partner's drawers right away. I'm talking about like the surface. That's the first thing you're going to see,
Right.
right? But the surface only tells you so much about a person.
Hmm.
So you do eventually want to go deeper. You do eventually
Hmm.
want to dig into, what are their habits? Are they the type of person who stuffs things in their drawers? Because that is a symbol for things that we are avoiding in life. And
Mm.
are they avoiding the hard conversations? Are they capable of having hard conversations? And those are the
Interesting.
things that, like, even with closet spaces or anything that isn't in the physical line of sight,
Hmm.
that's going to tell you a lot more about the person actually than just the surface. So you can start there by your feeling and going around the space. But when it comes to, seeing how they keep their things, how they, you know, do they keep them and feel like they're valuable? Do they take care of their things? And that's,
Right.
that's really hard in
Hmm.
the opposite partner's world. Women, we're definitely much more on the nurturing side of things, I guess. And I think that we're kind of programmed to be the nurturer, be the one that cleans the house all the time, or
Hmm.
be the one that cares about the home.
Right.
But men are definitely stepping up. We get to invite them into that because that is it's an old paradigm that doesn't exist anymore. Women, we
Correct.
work just as much as men.
Correct.
There's still a very big gap in that, and I think that more women who have children who are boys should absolutely encourage and train them how to clean and what the importance of
Mm-hmm.
it. Because my dad, I grew up with an OCD father. So he set the bar really high,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
know, maybe a
Yep.
little too high.
Right.
And so when it comes to like going in a space, I really have a high meter when it comes to those things. So I
Sure.
think now I've had a healthy balance of the two. But if you're evaluating a space and you're evaluating a partner, like it's the same thing. Don't let those little things just kind of like sift through like, oh, it's not important. Oh, he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really do his laundry. That's fine. Or oh, he doesn't really make the bed. If he doesn't make the bed, I'm sorry, that's a hard no. Like
So
for
tell
me
me, okay,
personally.
this is really interesting. And yeah, and it's a hard no for me too, because I make my bed every single day. But are there some red flags that women should look for when they walk into a potential mate's home? Like, what are some of the, and what do they say? Like, if someone doesn't make their bed, or like you were saying, if someone's drawers are really messy, that's why I always open someone's refrigerator too. I want to see what's in there. Like, if there's a
What
petri
they eat.
dish in the refrigerator, you know? So, what are some of the red flags that women can look for when they enter a man's space, and what does that tell them?
You know, for me, first of all, I would speak for myself, and also I think most women can relate to this is are they well kept? Do they have a
Mm-hmm.
tidy space? Do they have somebody clean or do they clean? And that's fine either way.
Mm-hmm.
But is it tidy? Is it kept up? Because listen, it isn't going to change like that. If they're messy right when you meet them and they're like, sorry, I don't really know how to do this, they're never going to change. And that's what you're getting yourself into, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing, maybe a red flag in terms of like, if you care about that, then that is going to be a red flag for you. It's not going to work later in your relationship because there's literally 80% of couples argue over household chores,
Mm-hmm.
taking out the trash,
Right.
all of these elements that are really not that important, but they mean something deeper. So down the
Absolutely.
road, if you're getting into a relationship and they can't meet you with that need of a
Mm-hmm.
space, for me, clutter creates chaos. It also is
Yes.
really, I have ADHD, so like that will just throw
Me
me
too.
off
Yes. Me too.
completely. And so a
Yes.
clean, right now I'm moving, so it's actually really triggering that. So I'm trying to like keep it an organized chaos, which is really challenging, but I've got a
Yes.
couple more weeks.
Yes.
I'll be okay. But those are the things that remind me how important it is for my partner to honor that, to recognize that I have something that affects me on a physical, emotional, deeper than that, emotional and mental level.
Mm-hmm.
And if that need can't be met, then it's going to be challenging throughout the relationship, no matter what, because they don't change. They can
Right.
try, but they won't change,
Right.
and that's something that could be a red flag for someone. Another one is, again, we talked about it, the bed making, but
Mm-hmm.
just the basic day to day taking care of things. It can show up in other areas because how we do one thing is how we do all things. So if
Exactly.
they're not able to make the bed when they first wake up, if they can't take care of themselves, how are they going to take care of you in
Exactly.
your needs and what
Right.
really is, you know, going to take you to a place where you feel safe, where you feel
Mm-hmm.
heard. There's so many factors in there, right? And they
Right.
all start to show up everywhere else later. And we can be in the honeymoon stage, we can be all in love, like, oh, he's
Right.
amazing, oh, he's this,
Sure.
but and easily bypass some of those very obvious like red flags later in the relationship because you didn't see them right off the bat.
Right.
Another one I want to add to that final one is how they take care of their physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Do they, if it's important for you to have something in the space that's like healthy, you want to take care of your body and you have healthy, fit goals.
Mm-hmm.
Are they taking care of that in themselves too? Do they have like workout gear? Do they take care of things in terms of like going to the gym? Or do they have a ritual? Is more what
Right.
I'm kind of getting to.
Right.
Because you literally become your partner no matter whether you like it or not.
Yes.
All of that energy that you're living in, you share those energies. You sleep together, your energy
Yes.
becomes unified.
Yes.
So you have to look at this partner in terms of like, is this partner going to add to my goals and the person that I am, or is it going to take from me in that way.
Right.
So measuring that energy ahead of time and looking around the space and looking for those clues are really going to set yourself up. Like if I wish I knew that when I was like dating back in the
Yep.
day, because that would probably change some, you know, decisions I made later in life.
Sure.
But
Sure,
yeah,
exactly.
really good
And
question.
that's so important. You know, there's a saying I always say is like you sleep with dogs, you get fleas. So whoever you're hanging around with, you are going to
Mhm.
their energy is going to rub off on you, and you're going to become like them, and they're going to become like you. So you better really choose wisely. And if that person is not a type of person that you want to become like, then that is not the type of person for you. And I want to,
Right.
there's two things that I want to ask you. As far as emotional availability, because I think a lot of women choose men that are not emotionally available, is there something about a space that says this person is not emotionally available? And if not, that's okay. But
Mm.
I'm just wondering because that's such a hole that women go into is picking these unemotionally, just not emotionally available men. I know that's what I did for a long time. And I'm like, is there something about a
Yeah.
space that tells you that?
You know, I would actually say there is because I do have some experience with that. And I think it kind of comes back to my father actually being sort of OCD,
Hmm.
not emotionally available. And there is something to be said for when someone is really out of balance in that way.
Hmm.
Like if you walk into a space and it is like immaculate and it's like you're not allowed to like move anything because it'll disrupt his, you know, and
Right.
I'm kind of like
Right.
that sometimes. So I have to say
Me
I've got
too.
a little, but
Me
like,
too. Yeah,
but I'm
I know what
aware,
you
you know,
mean.
I'm aware we're working on
Yes.
things, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
a lot
Yes.
of men are not willing to change that part of them. They're not
And that
willing to be
triggers
able to
them,
be
right?
available. It
Yeah. And they
triggers them
get,
on a deep level.
yeah.
Yeah. So to add to that, if a man has a lot of like this is something I learned from my master. If you walk into a man's room and there's like a nude picture of a woman or there's a lot of sharp
Ew.
objects or heavy energy, that's probably another sign they're not emotionally available because they care about that what is that representing? It's an ego driven space and they're probably not
Wow.
emotionally available for you.
That's so interesting, Nixie. Wow, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. And then,
And it happens, right?
oh
You
yeah.
go into
Oh my
spaces
gosh,
and you're like,
yes. I
"Oh,
have
that's
walked into those
pretty."
bedrooms. I'm like, where am I in a sex dungeon? I'm like, what is going on here? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Not
you know,
exactly gonna be your life partner. Maybe a good time for a little bit,
right,
but
right. No, I've
that's
I've
not what
I've
you
been
want.
there, and I'm just like, oh my God, you know. And you're right. It is consistent with ego-driven people. Typically, you know,
Mhm.
looking back now, I see that. And is is there something in a person's space that tells you that they are not financially responsible? That gives you a clue
Mm.
around that.
Yeah, I would say first of all, do they open their mail? Because that's the first
Oh,
thing, you know.
wow.
Do they care about what's in the mail or do they avoid it? You know, and
Interesting.
do they just literally put it on the desk and does it stack up? Or are they willing to look at the hard things? Because money is a hard conversation, period, in a
Yes,
relationship.
yes,
Even
yes.
even just to start having conversations around money, period, with people. Like so put that in a relationship and
Right.
it's quite challenging. So that would be the first thing. Another thing is, are they open to having that conversation around money right away? Like, can you
Mm-hmm.
talk about money? Can you be vulnerable in a space? Actually, when I met my husband, super vulnerable, but I was not in a great position financially. And
Right.
that really put me, I was 28 too. So
Right.
I think
You're
that
young.
that's a big
You
difference
get a
there too.
pass.
So he was my old honey that came in. No, I'm just kidding. But no, he definitely supported me in getting on my feet in sense. And we were really like, okay, let's make sure this is not a Save a Ho situation, but it's what actually it actually inspired me at how career focused he was. He was the first man
Mm-hmm.
that came into my life that had his finances like he was very well off in that term. So that for me spoke volumes. Now there's other areas though where it's like, can you ask what your credit score is? Can you ask what, those things might be uncomfortable initially. And for me, I'm kind of on the flip side of that because I'm speaking from my experience, but for me it was hard at first.
Right.
So my partner actually inspired me to, like, looking back now, I'd be like, I'm on a financial podcast, like that's crazy. That shows I've done some work, right? But
Right. Right.
it's like the partner has to be willing to
Mm-hmm.
get themselves out of their own mess if they're
Right.
in one. That's the first thing I'll speak to. The second thing is, if their home is okay, this is actually really good. If you were to take out your compass while you're at your partner's home,
Mm-hmm.
locate the southeast gua, see where the
Okay.
southeast corner is. This is actually the wealth corner in Feng Shui. So I would take a look at and like see what's going on there. If there's a lot of clutter in that space, could mean there's a little bit of chaos and disorganization in finances, because you can have money, but you could have no idea how to manage it, right? So that is
Ah.
also really important when it comes to picking a partner. Can they manage their finances? Are they capable of money management, budgeting? Can they stick to a budget? None of us are really that great at those things. Some of us can be, we can choose to be, but it takes practice, it takes effort, it takes conscious decisions and discipline. So
Right.
if we go deeper, do they have the discipline to be able to stick to these goals, stick to the budget? So kind of going into that space might be a little weird. I'm going to see, I see everybody like taking their
Everyone's
compasses
gonna
out.
do their compass on their phone and go into this.
Right.
It's the
So I
southeast
just have to
corner,
take them
right?
in.
Is that what it is? Southeast corner.
Yeah, southeast corner. So you just take
Okay.
the compass from the front door. You'll take the compass out and locate, like move it around and see where the southeast gua is,
Okay.
and just notice what's there. It, again, is it cluttered? Is it really organized? Is it a bathroom? Is it, because those are how we start to analyze and evaluate the
Mm-hmm.
space based on the Bagua map. So that's in reference to this Bagua system.
So interesting. Okay. Everyone go do that. I know I'm going to do that as soon as we're done with the podcast. I'm already actually doing it in my head. I'm like, yeah, I think it's pretty organized. So
Yeah, I'm sure it is for you.
that
Yes.
that's really good information. All right. So what I want to get into is, how do we use Feng Shui to enhance our finances or to meet our financial goals? How do we do that?
So it's a great segue into talking about the southeast corner, because this is really where, on a beginner, like you have no idea about anything Feng Shui, this is a great place to start. So what we use in Feng Shui is this Bagua system, and it's a system that is created around the center. So it's a square,
Okay.
and it has a center that is like the center of our health, our vitality. So that's the center of your home. And then around that, there's 8 squares, and that makes up a whole sort of experience of what this human existence is and why it's important to us, and all the factors that create balance and wholeness as a human here in this world. This is sort of the system that the Chinese created to determine how to build the temples, how to build sacred sites, to make sure that every area of these sacred temples and sites had importance. So we don't build our homes like that. I mean, Feng Shui is a system
Sure.
that was derived over 6,000 years ago. So this is for these. This was really for like the emperors, the queens,
Mm-hmm.
the those that were ruled in power. So I like to say that Feng Shui now, with a modern twist, is a way for us all to rule in our own power, in our sovereignty, and sit at the throne of what it is that we want to create in our world.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of this system was actually kept from the commoners, will say, back in these
Wow.
times, because they didn't want everyone to have access to this ancient wisdom. And so it's just like a lot of these ancient things that are coming to light, like, oh, the flower of life, oh, it's in the temple or in the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of sacred things coming to the surface, that we, even breath work, right? Like, nobody
Right.
talks about breath work,
Right.
how important it is. It's
Sure.
so important to our existence. So the Bagua map is made up of all the directions. Now, some Feng Shui will tell you that you only measure the space by standing at the front door, and the far left corner would be your southeast, or you kind of go by. I don't believe that. That's sort of a woo woo, like new agey twist to it. I studied classical Feng Shui, which is in essence its truest form. So I like to work with the directions, because then we're actually working with the earth. we're
Mm-hmm.
connecting to the meridian, the magnetic field of the earth, and we're able to utilize that because that's how it originally was designed.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to take out your compass, you want to locate that southeast gua, and this is again the wealth area, the finance area, and take note of what's there because first of all, you'll notice that more often than not, either there's clutter or it's like in a bathroom or it's in a weird space or if it's in a living room and there's sort of a lot of energy there, we want to just make sure that we enhance it. So some things that we can do to enhance that is by placing the water element in this area.
Mm.
So we work with the elements to enhance certain things or create cures. So water again is connected to finances. One of the things that I see more often than not is a lack of moving water, like a fountain, something that's moving to circulate the energy.
Mm.
So we activate this wealth gua by placing a fountain or moving water. A fish tank could work too.
Okay.
Um, Paintings like ocean paintings could work, but that's not technically going to be moving water. So it's
Right.
really bringing life to the space. I mean, when you think about it in terms of like we're made up of water, right? We
Mm-hmm.
we need water to live. So why wouldn't
Right.
our space also need
Right.
water?
Makes
If it
sense.
feels dry and dense, we need to add some life to it. And that's the
Sure.
chi, the pranic life force in the space. So that's the first thing you can do. Add a water fountain, and then metal actually enhances water. So metal's another great element to have in the southeast, or even have a metal fountain because that'll enhance your water.
Okay.
So I metal and water are two really great element combinations to bring into that southeast area. And by metal, I mean wrought iron, stainless steel. Maybe it's furniture that has metal on the bottom. It could be a end table in a living room. The only thing that we want to make sure is if we have a bathroom in the southeast gua, do not add a water fountain here. This
Okay.
is where it already has enough water. So we don't want to add, we actually want to ground the elements. So we want to add earth element, wood element, like plants, bamboo, wood, literal wood, anything that feels more earthy, so that we're actually grounding in our finances and they're not just symbolically like going down the drain. So
Mm.
if you have a bathroom in the southeast gua too, and you keep the door open or your toilet seat open, like that's definitely a feng shui no. Do not do that because at
Ah.
any time really, because the drains of a home are the biggest, like the drain in the sink or the drain in the toilet. They're these big holes that go down to the bottom of who knows where, right? It's
Right.
like this.
Yeah.
So it's said in feng shui, if you keep your toilet seat open, it will drain your finances. So if you notice
Oh my
that in your life,
gosh.
yeah, these that's what the drain symbolize. So everything in feng shui has like a symbolic meaning, like your home, like with windows, it's the eyes of the home. So if you're lacking clarity in your finances, lacking clarity in your career, in your life, clean your windows, and that can symbolize seeing clearly and having more of a line of sight of where you're going. Doors, your front door symbolizes opportunities in your life. So that's another way to enhance your finances because you can clean your front door, add a welcome mat to welcome opportunities. This is where the mouth of chi, like the
Mm.
chi moves into your space. So by adding some things to your front door that sort of uplift it, enhance it, really setting an intention that this
Wow.
is going to bring in new opportunities based on my career, my life, that's really a way to utilize the intention behind it and some decor items, stuff like that. So, some other things that you can do just in your wealth gua, is adding a money tree. Any plants too are good because they, again, bring life force there. Some
Mm-hmm.
people go as far as making a money altar, having symbols of deities like Ganesh or Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth and abundance. So sitting with her, chanting with her, meditating with her, she's been good to me. I love working with her.
Great.
So, there's just different ways that and I really want to bring it back to too, like there's a lot of rules in feng shui,
Mhm.
but intuition is also really powerful. So if there's something to you that symbolizes wealth, put it there. It could be gold coins. It could be, I have a pyramid, like a beautiful crystal pyramid that's sort of got a pyrite and beautiful like opal around it in my wealth gua because that symbolizes wealth to me, you know. So
Right.
think of what it is for you, and also make sure you do have a water fountain of some sort. Again, if it's not in the bathroom, but I'm a big fan of water fountains because I've
Okay.
personally not only seen in my life how it's really affected me, but also my clients' homes. So those are just some
Wow.
fun ways. I could go on forever, but
Wow, everyone's
just
gonna run
good
out and
ones.
get a water fountain.
Yeah, yeah.
I know I am. I don't have a water fountain, so I need to go do
And
that.
it's so lovely. It's really nice
It
to have
is.
that sound, and
It
you know,
is.
it's also not great for the bedroom. So I will add that if you do have a gua in the bedroom. Bedroom's sort of it's like an activating energy. You don't really want to hear that when you're sleeping.
Right, right. And then there was one other thing you told me when I was actually on your podcast that I'd never heard before is if you have holes in your sheets, that's how you lose money, right? And I inspected my sheets. Thank God I don't have any holes, but I had never heard that before.
Yeah, so it also is a lot to say about your worthiness. So if you have a space that
Mm,
is not aligned to, let's say, who you want to be. Let's say you want to create more income in your life. You want to be someone who has wealth, who has investments, who has a really amazing investment portfolio. There's someone that you want to be. Is your home matching that? Is it mirroring
yes,
that?
yes,
Because
yes.
that is saying a lot. Like if you have holes in your sheets, that sort of says like how much you care about yourself. It taps on your
Right.
worthiness and your self-worth. And your self-worth is so important and vital into that person or that creating wealth, being capable, knowing that you can. So
Mm-hmm.
just having things that are not filled with stains, you know, everything around your space is going to show you how you value yourself, how you love yourself, because your home and loving your home is an act of self care and really an invitation for you to step into this version of you that you really want to be. And it's a fun game to play because it's just like it's just like getting dressed a certain way to be
Right.
and embody, you know, someone who has exudes power or confidence. And you know, maybe
Sure.
you don't really feel that way, but half of us
Sure.
out here that are putting ourselves out there, we actually don't have that built in us. We get to break through that confidence more often than not. So don't let that be a stopping point. Like, have fun with it. Put things like gold, you know, fixtures in your space, having something that really feels like luxury. It doesn't need to be
Mm-hmm.
something you spend a ton of money on either. It could
Right.
be just having a nice bath from time to time and
Sure.
putting rose petals in there. You know, it's just bringing in that little dose of you're worth it. You're
Right.
worth having sheets without holes in your bed. You're worth having a beautiful dining set that you eat your,
Right.
you know, nourishing foods on, or a dining table, or a beautiful chair that you're going to sit in every single day at your office.
Correct.
Think of it in that way.
Yeah, act as if. That is so important in anything that I've done because I've there's no secret. You know, I come from an underserved background. I didn't have any money growing up, but I've always acted as if. Even if I couldn't afford to buy the expensive stuff, my space has always looked nice, for lack of better
Mm,
words. Whatever it
mm,
was, it's always been neat. It's always been clean. I've always made it look the best that I could possibly make it look. And when I bought this house a year ago, the house was only a few years old, and I changed a lot of things to it. And you know, I bought certain furniture, and all my friends were like, "Well, what are you doing? You know, it's only a few years old." But just like you were saying, like I wanted to walk in this space and be like, "Oh yes," you know, and
yeah.
it like it was I've accomplished something. Look at what I've accomplished because it's a reflection of me. And I wanted the feeling of wow, like when I walk into my living room every day, I'm just like, wow, this is such a great space. Or even in my bedroom, I love going into my bedroom. It gives me like such a sense of peace. So that is so important in what your space is around you as to what your mentality is about yourself and about the
Mhm.
things that you can accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if you don't feel that way, it's
Right.
time to change things.
Sure. And do you have any? tips for people out there who really are kind of stuck in a cluttered space right now? They don't even know it's overwhelming, right? Sometimes if you're in a cluttered space, you don't even know where to start because there's so much to do. Do you have any tips for them?
I do. I actually created a 7-step declutter method. So I have a free
Great.
guide. I'll send you the link so that your listeners can download that.
Fantastic.
But it really taps on the different energy centers called chakras.
Mm-hmm.
And these are what actually create our environment. So instead of asking like, oh, does this spark joy? That definitely helps. Absolutely having everything in your home. But I like to go deeper. So I personally go through different questions that I ask. And this is like on the guide that you ask yourself,
Great.
like, does this item make me feel safe? Which would tap on the solar plexus, the root chakras.
Mm,
And if it doesn't provide that yes, that full body yes, then why would we keep that in our space? It's not making
right.
us feel safe. So there's
Right.
deeper
Right.
questions. It's sort of a guiding point.
Okay.
That would be like one idea. But another thing is if you're really stuck because you can, I've worked with clients, hoarders, and situations where it's really hard because it's a mental thing. You've got to change your mindset in
Yep.
order to shift your environment. So getting help, asking for help, hiring someone to come help you,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to do it. I know
Right.
so many people who are scared to have somebody come into their home because they're afraid of what the other person's going to think. Guess
Right.
what? That person coming in is so excited to help you. They can't
Yes.
wait to help you get out of that space that you're living in. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And lastly, have a system in place. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
when I close out my day, I clean my desk, I close it out, I go through my space in my home. I actually like to clean my home in the morning. It's like my part of my
Mm-hmm.
ritual.
Right.
So in the morning I just kind of put things back to their homes, make sure all the dishes are put away.
Right.
There's things that and then my husband also contributes to that too. Like we have our morning before we go to work kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And having those systems in place, like when we start to neglect those systems,
Mm-hmm.
the clutter builds up,
Right.
so we have to have something that works for us, whether you have kids, whether you're by yourself, whether you're with a partner, that works for everyone. And everybody can kind of get involved in that because without those systems in place, without the discipline, knowing that your space is really what's actually, it can support you and it can also deplete you and really make you feel not happy, which is not
Right.
what we want. So the clutter is what starts to create that because it's like for me when I'm like PMSing, I definitely go into my my sort of like okay, whoa, all of a sudden my desk is a little unorganized and so I notice that
Yeah.
that's when my mind starts to go in my ADHD like
Yes.
okay, a
Yes.
million things going on. So knowing thyself is really important
Mm-hmm.
in knowing how you need to tend to your space and it really becomes when you tune into your space and have that level of awareness of what's going on in your environment,
Mm-hmm.
you start to really see that you can use your environment to create the life you desire. It's literally a vision board for your life. So if you start looking at it in that way and go, if I want to go travel, if I want to get a new career, if I whatever it is you want,
Mm-hmm.
start creating your space to reflect that. And that has a
Yes.
lot to do with clutter because clutter is just getting in the way. It's stagnant energy. It's what we call Sichi energy. It's not good to have in our space. Now, a little bit of clutter, maybe you have a drawer that has
Mm-hmm.
like your clutter drawer, it's your sort of
Right.
junk drawer.
Yeah.
If you are a hardcore clutter person, like give yourself permission to have that junk drawer
Right.
because it's
Right.
okay. You've got to
Right.
have some space to
Sure.
transition out of that mindset. So, yeah, those are my
So
tips.
we will please send us the link to your guide because I think a lot of people would benefit from that. And please tell us where we can find you. Tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for having me, Patty.
Of
This was a really
course.
fun sort of way to guide the conversation around, empowerment and signs for men. I'm going to use that. That's a good one. But yeah, so I'm on socials a lot. I'm very active on the
Hmm.
social media, mostly Instagram and TikTok these days. So just Nixie Marie, Nixie, and my website is highvibehome.life. And you can pretty much find all things about me on my Instagram, to be honest. It's, the new business card these days. So
Absolutely.
I can't wait to meet you
Nixie,
guys.
thank you so much for being on the show. You really opened our eyes. This is different than anything that we've done before. And, allowing us to take a holistic approach to building wealth is so important. So we thank you for being on the show. I want to thank the listeners for joining the show. Please make sure to follow and rate the show because it's so important in keeping our show alive. And until next time, never forget that a man is not a financial plan.